You did it. Okay.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. We are going over Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. And before we get started with the second chapter, I'm going to go ahead and invite a few people here.
All of the likes need to be sent.
Yeah. Hope everybody had a good weekend this weekend. It was very nice here in Indiana. We got to enjoy some sun over by the beach after we were looking at a property yesterday. Alrighty. Come on. There we go. Alrighty, so we are going to get started with chapter 2. So, getting a new definition of failure and success. So, the difference between greatness and mediocrity is often an individual's views on mistakes. So, one of the greatest problems people have with failure is that they're too quick to judge isolated situations in their lives and label them as failures. And instead, they need to keep the bigger picture in mind. So there's 7 things when it comes to failure that failure is not. So the first one is that people think failure is avoidable, and unfortunately that is not true. So you need to know that you're gonna make some mistakes in the beginning. When you're new to network marketing, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. And there's a few rules that come with being a human being. And number 1, you're gonna learn lessons. Number 2, there are no mistakes, only lessons. Number 3, a lesson is repeated until it is learned. Number 4, if you don't learn the lesson, the easy lesson, it's gonna get harder. And pain is the way that the universe gets your attention. And then number 5, you'll know you've learned the lesson when your actions change. So we see this a lot. Anytime somebody comes on new to the team, we have a script that we like to have people run by, because unless you give people exact instructions of what to go do and what to say, usually they don't go do it, or what they end up doing, they think they're following the script or what we told them to do, and then they try to make it their own, and they try to do it their way. The problem with doing that is a lot of times they'll go off and they'll struggle for a few weeks, and they're like, I don't understand. I can't seem to get people on the phone. I can't get people to sit down with me. And I'm like, well, let's run through the script. And how are you getting in front of people? I'm like, let's run through this. And what I'll find is that they're not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then I'm like, oh, this is it. This is what you're missing. And they're always like, well, I did that. And I'm like, well, I just watched you do it and you did not do that. And sometimes they don't realize that they're not doing something. So that's why we have it. But I always have to go back with people and I'm like, are you doing what we showed you how to do? Because I'm like, if you follow this exactly, you will not have a problem with it. But sometimes when I see the issue, they're not ready to hear what they're doing wrong. So I let them struggle a little bit, maybe fall on their face a couple of times. And until they come to me and say, hey, I'm struggling, I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm not happy with my results, I'm like, okay, now we can sit down and have this conversation, and now they're willing to listen. Number 2, people think failure is an event. So, excuse me, hold on. There, that's better. So people think failure is an event. So in school, if you get an F, it meant that you failed. But failure is a process, and if you flunk a test, it doesn't mean that you failed a one-time event. The F shows that you neglected the process leading up to the test. Number 3, people think failure is an objective. So if you are the only person who can you are the only person who could really label what you're doing as a failure. So the average entrepreneur is 3.8 failures before they finally get their business off of the ground. And it's just up to you to decide whether this is a failure or a lesson. What should I do differently for the next time? That's where tracking helps, is so you can go back and look at, like, okay, this is what I did good this time, this is what didn't work out, and this is what I think we need to do next. Start talking with your mentors, like, okay, I tried this, it didn't work out. So a lot of people will bring us a lot of different marketing tools where they're like, oh, this is a new way to get leads. And a lot of times we've tried them. So we're like, look, I know you want to go out and try this, and I'm not telling you what to do. However, we've already worked with those leads and trying it with our process. If you can find another way to do it better, great. But just so you know, we did not do well with this way of doing things. So it's a way. So talking with your mentors can actually save you some time if you have them. If you don't have them, you want to go find them, but that's where you want to go with that. Number 4, people think failure is the enemy. Unfortunately, it's not the enemy, but some people think they have to avoid it at all costs. There's absolutely no way to avoid it at all costs. But sometimes the lesson is it hurts, but it's going to make you better, and you just got to be able to sit back and think, is this going to make me better, or what do I need to do next? Number 5, people think failure is irreversible. The only time it's not irreversible is when you don't learn from the mistake. He talks a lot about learning. Mistakes are actually lessons, and the only time it's irreversible is if you don't learn from the mistake. We see this a lot, like if you've ever had a friend or known somebody where they just seem to have the same issue over and over and over again. I'm like, you're missing the lesson here. So that's how you would want to look at that. Number 6, people think failure is a stigma. Mistakes are not permanent markers. Like, they're not going to stick to you forever. And I think this is more where people are like, well, what are other people going to think? Honestly, it doesn't matter what other people think. They're so caught up in what they're doing. They're not really paying attention to what you're doing. But where you just don't want to it's okay to have a bunch of failures so long as you eventually get your shit together to where you make it work. So, and that's fine, and people relate to that, because nobody relates to the person who did everything great and has never ever had an issue with anything. Nobody relates to that person because it's not real. So having the failures is fine so long as you figure it out later. Number 7, people think failure is final. So steps to success. You're afraid of being a fool. You look like a fool. You are a fool. Successful entrepreneur, and then you turn into a genius. So that's something that John typed up. But that's pretty much what I got for the day. It's just, don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, because you're not going to grow unless you do things that are uncomfortable, and you're going to make a few mistakes, but those mistakes are what are going to make you better, and then you're only going to get better the more mistakes you make. So with that, that's what I have for this chapter, and Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So I found that it's when you get to activity that this kicks in. You see direct sales, you see network marketing, and they present this great idea. Oh my gosh, if we could just get some people in. Oh my gosh, if we could just put things together. If you can just get 2, if you can just get 4, if you can just get 8, everybody's comp plan's a little bit different. Then this could take off, and the possibility's there. So you get excited, and you're like, yes, this could work for me. Then you might go to a training, hear somebody, and then you're going to go pitch people. And there's kind of I see 3 mentalities. Mentality 1 is kind of like the lottery mentality. When you see the business and they talk about 3 or 6, you kind of pick out the 6 ahead of time. You don't look for the 6 that want to do it. You pick out 6 that should do it in your own head, and you go try to convince them that this is the best idea in the world for them, because if they do it, then you get rich. And this is, another way to put it, other than the lottery mentality, is like the poser mentality. You're fake. You're completely fake when you go after it. It comes from a very selfish point of view. If you do this, I get rich. And typically, these people do not do well in life, period. Not just in this, but typically people don't do well in life, period, when they go off and they try to work, a business, and they try to pick them out ahead of time. Trying to beat somebody over the head with the information and how good it's going to be for them, but you just want yourself to get rich. Not really a good way to do it. But I find that people have that mentality, that lottery mentality, and they'll go talk to 3 to 6 people, and it doesn't work for them, and they're not willing to go get any training. That's ultimate failure. Hey, I'm going to go try to do this on my own without any help, without any training, without knowing what to do. And the reality is you'd pretty much fail at anything you do when you try to do that. People think that there's no skill to recruiting and building a team. And what I can tell you is there's a lot. Obviously, when you get people who are making millions of dollars in an industry, there has to be something more to it than just talking to a few people. If you think otherwise, your education level is literally so low that you need to bring that up just to the point of understanding that it's going to take more. And that's not stupid, that's ignorance. It's just, you just don't get it. That's like saying, well, anybody could be a doctor. All you have to do is, just read this one book. Well, there's probably more to it than that, right? Tons of years, tons of classes, tons of building upon principles to be able to get to the point where you'd be like an MD. And I'm not saying that recruiting and building a team is anywhere near what an MD is. It's not, at least from all the study that I've done. But there is more to it than just talking to 6 people and trying to convince them. So I think that's where the first failure comes in, is people thinking it's going to be easy, and they're just going to go out and people are just going to want to do this. I had that mentality when I first started. I just thought I knew the people because they had already been successful. I'm like, my uncle, this person. I mean, these people already know it. They already do it. And here's what's wild. I couldn't even get them to look at it. They wouldn't even look. Why? My approach was so terrible. I failed to understand human nature. I failed to understand the process. I failed to basically understand what we were doing. Then I had to go into training mode. That didn't work, so I went into training mode. I was like, well, I need more training. So I went through training mode, and I found out some of the things that I said in the beginning would never have worked on anybody for any reason. I found out things like my personality is only 3% of the population. That's why, unfortunately, that's why I didn't relate to people growing up. That's why I had human relation problems to begin with. That's why I kind of stuck to myself a lot of the times, is because I only related to 3% of the population. The things I liked, the things I wanted to talk about, most people didn't get, most people didn't understand, most people didn't care about. So if you're going to recruit, those are all very, very important things to understand. Outside of personality and the fact that I was driven and didn't understand, as I learned a little bit more, I went out and I started experimenting, and I was like, ooh, that doesn't work. Ooh, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I tried many, many different things until I started getting it down where, okay, I can do this. A really big test for me when I got things to start to work for myself is then I had people on my team and I had to train them how to do what I've done. That was a whole nother nightmare. And what I mean by nightmare is a lot of people think in recruiting that the hardest part is to recruit. And what I can tell you from the people who know how to do this, the hardest part is not recruiting. That's probably about 25% of figuring things out. The hardest part is turning around and teaching somebody else to do it. And then teaching the teachers how to do it. It's a totally different skill set. You'd think it's the same skill set, but it's a totally different skill set. Watch it, learn it, do it. Seems very simple. What I found is if you're around great recruiters, you do learn faster. If you're around people and you get to hear what they say and see what they do, you can learn much quicker, but you're gonna still fail at it because your basic human instinct you're working against. And what do I mean by that? Your basic human instinct wants to keep you right where you're at. Wants to keep you at status quo. Wants to keep you safe. That's what your basic human instinct is built to do, keep you safe. It's a survival mechanism. And because it's a survival mechanism, it will stop you from going to make more money. It will stop you from getting your goals and dreams. Your basic human instinct does not care about your goals and dreams. It cares about keeping you safe. It'll override all systems in the body. How do you break that? One of the books that I read and one of the mentors I had, one of the coaches I had, talked about how to break your basic human instinct. And the only way you can do it is systematize it. So that way there is a tracking system that can push you beyond your comfort zone. Because your comfort zone is really easy to figure out. Just track what you're doing right now. Track what you're doing right now. That's your comfort zone. You're like, well, I'm not doing shit. Well, if you're not doing anything, that's where your comfort zone is. You can't get yourself to do anything. That's where your comfort zone is. You can't get organized. That's where your comfort zone is. So how do you break out of that? Well, you start setting incremental goals that are trackable. They have to be activities that are trackable. And a lot of people are like, well, you just need to set higher goals. What's the point of setting higher goals if you don't do the work? Have you ever set higher goals and not gotten anything that you wrote down? Or not even started towards? Well, the reason you haven't even started towards, your basic human instinct pulls you right back to safety. You're like, yeah, that stuff would be nice if they just gave it to you, but you're not going to be willing to work for it. So you have to systematize it. What are the activities? What is the actions you have to do over and over and over again? And you track, watch this, you track the activity, you don't track the result. You track the activity, you don't track the result. So that's how teaching this. And are they going to fail? Yeah, but going out and doing the attempts, you learn so much faster. I've heard that 1 hour in the field is worth 20 in the classroom. 1 hour in the field is worth 20 in the classroom. 1 hour going out and actually physically talking to people and saying it wrong and doing it wrong, you'll learn at such a faster pace. So failure is something that's inevitable if you want to get good in business. At a job, they teach you not to fail. They're actually kind of pre-programming you never to go out and build your own business. They're trying to pre-program you never to go self-employed and do it yourself. The program, the entire system, and what I mean by system, school system, television system, media system, is trying to pre-program you to get you to fall in line and follow that process that they built, because the people who designed that system don't want competition. They don't want you to compete against them. They built the system so you won't compete against them. And guys, it's built like, the more you read the type of books that I'm talking about, you'll see more of what I'm talking about. I had one of my mentors, he's like, you might argue now, but the higher you climb, the more you'll agree. And what's funny is now that we've kind of gone up a couple levels, and I'm nowhere near the guy who said that, but as I've gone up a couple levels in business, I see it more and more, that programming that's just driven into people. And I think one of the reasons you see it, the higher you climb, is you talk to more people and you can see that mentality over and over and over again in different places, in different cultures, in different age groups, where it was just impounded into people. So failure is inevitable, but it is not, it's not going to stop you. It will not stop you. It won't stop you unless you stop. So it's something you have to go out and do over and over and over again. And slowly you'll start tweaking words and you'll start changing maybe tonality. There's all these inflections that you can do in your voice that also have a lot to do with it. Most people who are failing up front are using failure-based words. The vocabulary of failure, it is a vocabulary. Leadership is taught, unfortunately, so is failure. And you probably have learned failure from the people around you who did not follow through, did not succeed to begin with. You have to get around people who win to learn how to win. You're not going to learn how to win from people who fail. Just doesn't happen. So that's what I got for today. Tomorrow we'll be on chapter 3. If you failed, are you a failure? Cheryl, how are you? So that's what we got for today. Brandy, anything else?
So if you guys would like our notes, I'm going to put a link in the comments below, and we are going to email you those notes. We're taking them on each chapter and sending them out. If you guys would like to follow us on YouTube, you can search us by going to MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show, and then you could go follow us there. So that way, if you'd like to go back and rewatch this, you are more than welcome to. So with that, we're going to see you guys tomorrow, and have an awesome day.